The morning sun barely broke through the gray clouds over Bakersfield, California, when 8-year-old Tommy Parker pressed his small face against the cold window of the state-run foster home on Maple Street. His hazel eyes, too old for his age, watched the world outside with the careful attention of someone who had learned early that safety was a luxury he could not afford. Tommy had not spoken a single word in 3 years. The doctors called it selective mutism, a psychological response to trauma. The foster care workers called it a challenge. The other kids at Riverside Foster Home called him weird. But Tommy did not care much about labels anymore. Words had failed him when he needed them most, so he had simply stopped using them. The foster home was a large, deteriorating Victorian house that had seen better days decades ago. Peeling paint, creaking floors, and the constant smell of overcooked vegetables defined the place. 18 children lived there under the supervision of Gregory and Martha Hendricks, a couple in their late 50s who had been running the facility for 12 years. On paper, they were model caregivers. In reality, they were something else entirely. Gregory was a tall, heavy-set man with thinning hair and cold blue eyes that never quite smiled even when his mouth did. He ruled the house with an iron fist disguised as discipline. Martha was thin, nervous, and always looking away when things got uncomfortable. She had learned long ago that questioning her husband was not worth the consequences. Tommy had been at Riverside for 8 months. Before that, he had bounced through 4 different homes in 2 years. His mother had died of an overdose when he was 5. His father was unknown. The state had become his parent, and the system had failed him repeatedly. The bruises started 3 months after he arrived. A shove down the stairs that Gregory claimed was an accident. A grip on his arm so tight it left finger-shaped marks that Martha explained away as Tommy being clumsy during a game. A belt across his back for not cleaning his plate, hidden under his oversized t-shirts. Tommy could not tell anyone, not just because he did not speak, but because he had learned that telling only made things worse. On this particular Tuesday morning, Tommy had woken up with a fresh bruise blooming purple and yellow across his ribs. Gregory had lost his temper the night before over something trivial, something Tommy could not even remember now. The pain was sharp when he breathed too deeply. At 9 in the morning, the social worker made her monthly visit. Ms. Patricia Romero was a tired woman in her 40s who carried a caseload of 63 children. She spent exactly 45 minutes at Riverside, asking surface-level questions, checking boxes on her tablet, and accepting Martha's offers of coffee and homemade cookies. She did not notice the way Tommy flinched when Gregory walked past. She did not see the fear in the eyes of the other children. She saw a clean house, fed kids, and a couple who said all the right things. After she left, Gregory gathered all the children in the common room. His voice was cheerful, but his eyes were threatening. "I hope everyone was on their best behavior. We would not want Ms. Romero getting the wrong idea about our happy family here, would we?" The children knew what that meant. Tommy sat in the corner, knees pulled to his chest, making himself as small as possible. That afternoon, the foster home received an unusual visitor. Marcus Reaper Johnson, a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, pulled up on his Harley-Davidson. He was not there for trouble. He was there to drop off his nephew, a 13-year-old named Dante who was being placed in foster care after his single mother had been hospitalized. Marcus was a massive man, 6'4", covered in tattoos, with a graying beard and eyes that had seen too much of life's darkness. He wore his leather vest with the club's colors proudly. He had been with the Angels for 20 years, and the Brotherhood was his family. Gregory met him at the door with his fake smile and professional demeanor. Martha hovered nervously in the background. The handover was supposed to be quick. Sign the papers, say goodbye, and leave. But as Marcus hugged Dante one last time, he noticed something over the boy's shoulder. Tommy was standing at the top of the stairs, watching. Their eyes met for just a moment. In that brief connection, Marcus saw something he recognized. The look of a kid who was surviving, not living. The look of someone being hurt. Marcus released Dante and gave him a reassuring nod. He turned to leave, but something made him stop. Call it instinct. Call it experience. Call it the awareness that comes from years of reading people and situations. He turned back around. Actually, before I go, can I use your bathroom? Gregory's smile tightened just slightly, but he could not refuse such a simple request. Of course. Down the hall, first door on the left. Marcus walked slowly through the house, his boots heavy on the wooden floors. He did not go to the bathroom. Instead, he walked toward the stairs where Tommy still stood frozen, watching this intimidating stranger move through his world. Marcus climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. Tommy did not move, did not run. He had nowhere to go anyway. When Marcus reached the top, he crouched down to the boy's level, making himself less intimidating despite his size. He did not say anything at first. He just looked at Tommy with the kind of understanding that cannot be faked. Then he noticed it. The way Tommy held his left side. The slight wince when he breathed. The purple edge of a bruise peeking out from under his collar. Marcus had seen abuse before. He had lived it as a child. His own father had been a violent drunk who beat him and his sister until Marcus was big enough to fight back. That was part of why he joined the Angels. They were the family he chose, the brothers who had his back when blood relatives had failed him. Hey, little man. You okay? Tommy stared at him but said nothing. Marcus noticed the boy's lips did not move, did not even tremble as if trying to form words. You do not talk much. Huh? That is all right. I get it. Marcus glanced down the hallway. Gregory was watching from the bottom of the stairs, his expression hard to read but definitely not friendly. Everything all right up there, Mr. Johnson? Yeah, just talking to this little guy. He is a good kid. Marcus looked back at Tommy and lowered his voice to barely a whisper. If you are hurting, you can show me. Nobody else has to see. For a long moment, Tommy did nothing. Trust was not something he gave easily anymore. But something about this big, scary-looking man with the skull rings and leather vest felt different. Maybe it was the softness in his eyes. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe Tommy was just tired of carrying the pain alone. Slowly, with trembling hands, Tommy lifted the edge of his shirt just enough to reveal the bruises across his ribs. Dark purple, yellow around the edges, clearly recent. Then he turned slightly and showed his back. More bruises. Belt marks. Some fresh, some fading. Marcus's jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. His hands balled into fists, and for a moment, a rage so pure and hot surged through him that he had to close his eyes and breathe. But he did not scare the boy. He did not yell. He did not make a scene. Not yet. Instead, he pulled out his phone and quickly took several photos. Tommy watched him, confused but not afraid. Marcus stood up and ruffled Tommy's hair gently. You are going to be okay, kid. I promise you that. He walked back downstairs where Gregory and Martha were waiting. Marcus's face was stone. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made Martha take a step back. I will be back. Real soon. He walked out the door, got on his bike, and before he even reached the end of the block, he was already making a phone call. The person who answered was Tank, the president of his chapter. Tank, we got a situation. I need the whole charter. Yeah, all of them. We are riding tonight. Within 2 hours, Marcus had made 17 phone calls. The photos of Tommy's bruises had been sent to Tank, who forwarded them to every member of the Bakersfield charter. The response was immediate and unanimous. This was not just about one kid anymore. This was about every kid who had ever been hurt by someone bigger and stronger. Every angel who answered that call had their own story, their own scars, their own reasons for wanting to protect the defenseless. By 6 that evening, the parking lot of the Hells Angels clubhouse on Highway 58 was packed. Motorcycles lined up in rows, their chrome gleaming under the California sunset. Men and women in leather vests bearing the Death Head logo gathered inside, their faces grim. Tank, a barrel-chested man in his 50s with a gray ponytail and arms covered in ink, stood at the front of the room. Marcus showed them everything. The photos, Tommy's silent plea, the fear in that little boy's eyes. He told them about Gregory's fake smile and Martha's nervous glances. He told them about Dante, his nephew, now trapped in that same house. We do not let this slide. We do not walk away. That kid trusted me enough to show me what they did to him. If we do nothing, we are no better than the people who looked the other way." Tank crossed his arms and looked around the room at faces he had known for decades. Brothers who had been through wars, prison, loss, and pain together. "How many can we get?" Marcus did not hesitate. "I have been making calls. We got charters from Fresno, Modesto, Sacramento, even some boys driving up from San Diego. We can have 250 bikes there by morning." The room erupted in nods and affirmations. This was what the Brotherhood was for. Not the Hollywood version. Not the outlaw stereotype. This was about using their strength for something that mattered. Tank slammed his fist on the table. "Then we ride at dawn. We go legal, we go loud, and we make sure every authority in Bakersfield knows what is happening at that foster home. We bring the media, we bring the pressure, and we do not leave until those kids are safe. If you believe some fights are worth fighting, if you believe in standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, hit that subscribe button. Because this story is about to get real, and you will want to see what happens when 250 bikers decide enough is enough." Meanwhile, back at Riverside Foster Home, Tommy lay in his small bed, staring at the ceiling. He did not know what was coming. He did not know that across town, an army was assembling for him. He just knew that for the first time in 3 years, someone had actually seen him. Really seen him. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to change everything. Wednesday morning broke cold and clear over Bakersfield. At exactly 7:30, the rumble started. It began as a distant thunder, then grew louder, closer, impossible to ignore. Gregory was drinking his morning coffee when he heard it. He walked to the front window and his face went pale. Down Maple Street, like something out of a fever dream, came a river of motorcycles. 250 Hells Angels, riding in tight formation, their engines roaring in unison. The sound shook windows. Car alarms went off. Neighbors came out onto their porches. And leading the pack was Marcus with Tank right beside him. They did not stop at the foster home. They circled the entire block, again and again, the noise overwhelming, unavoidable, a declaration that could not be ignored. Within 10 minutes, 3 police cars arrived. Within 20, news vans from 2 local stations pulled up. Within 30, a supervisor from Child Protective Services was on scene, along with the county sheriff himself. The bikers parked their motorcycles in every available space surrounding the property. They did not trespass. They did not threaten. They simply stood there, arms crossed, a wall of leather and conviction, waiting. Sheriff Tom Brennan, a 20-year veteran who had dealt with the Angels before, approached Tank with caution but respect. "Tank, what is going on here? You are causing quite a scene." Tank handed him his phone with the photos of Tommy's bruises. "That is what is going on. That boy is 8 years old and he has been beaten repeatedly in that house. We are not leaving until every kid in there is checked by a doctor and that man is arrested." Brennan looked at the photos and his expression hardened. He turned to his deputies. "Get CPS in there now. I want every child interviewed separately. And somebody find Gregory Hendricks." Inside the house, chaos had erupted. Martha was crying. The children were scared and confused, and Gregory was frantically trying to maintain control of a situation that had already spiraled beyond his reach. When the authorities entered, he put on his best innocent face. "Sheriff, I do not know what this is about. These bikers are harassing us. This is a respectable foster home." The CPS supervisor, a sharp-eyed woman named Linda Cortez, was not buying it. "Then you will not mind if we examine every child here." Immediately, one by one, the children were taken to separate rooms. Tommy was examined by a pediatrician who had been called to the scene. When she saw the extent of his injuries, bruises in various stages of healing, belt marks, signs of sustained abuse, she documented everything with photographs and detailed notes. Dante, Marcus's nephew who had been there less than 24 hours, told investigators he had heard Gregory yelling at Tommy the night before and heard the sound of hitting. By noon, Gregory Hendricks was in handcuffs, being led to a patrol car while 250 bikers watched in grim satisfaction. Martha was taken in for questioning as an accomplice. The investigation moved quickly once it started. Other former residents of Riverside Foster Home came forward, children who had aged out of the system or been moved to other placements. They told stories of years of abuse, of Gregory's violent temper, of Martha's complicity through silence. Medical records were subpoenaed. Teachers were interviewed. A pattern emerged that was undeniable and damning. Gregory Hendricks was charged with 12 counts of child abuse, assault, and endangerment. Martha faced charges of neglect and failure to report. The state immediately revoked their foster care license and shut down Riverside permanently. The 18 children were relocated to different facilities, but this time, the Angels made sure they were watched closely. Members volunteered to be mentors, visiting the kids regularly, making sure they were safe, fed, and most importantly, seen. Tommy was placed in a specialized therapeutic foster home run by a former child psychologist named Dr. Sarah Chun and her husband Robert. They had experience with traumatized children and understood that healing would take time. They never pushed Tommy to speak. They just loved him, consistently and patiently. Marcus became a regular presence in Tommy's life. He visited twice a week, bringing small gifts, nothing fancy, just things that said, "I am thinking about you." Comic books, a model motorcycle kit, a skateboard. They would sit together in comfortable silence, and slowly, Tommy began to relax around him. 3 months after that dramatic morning on Maple Street, something remarkable happened. Tommy was in the garage with Marcus, helping him clean his motorcycle. Marcus was explaining how the engine worked, not expecting any response, just talking because he believed Tommy deserved to be spoken to like any other kid. Tommy suddenly tugged on Marcus's sleeve. When the big biker looked down, the boy was holding up a wrench, offering it. And then, so quietly Marcus almost missed it, Tommy spoke. "This one?" Marcus froze. His eyes filled with tears that he quickly blinked away. He nodded, not trusting his voice. "Yeah, buddy. That is exactly the right one." It was just 2 words, but they represented a bridge back to a world Tommy had abandoned out of self-protection. Over the following weeks, the words came more frequently. Short sentences at first, then longer ones. Dr. Chun worked with him on trauma therapy, and Robert taught him woodworking as a way to process his emotions through creation. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Tommy did not have to testify because the evidence was overwhelming. Gregory was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. Martha received 5 years. The courtroom erupted in applause when the verdict was read, and outside, dozens of bikers who had shown up in support revved their engines in celebration. Justice, imperfect as it always is, had been served. But more than that, a little boy who had been invisible for so long had finally been seen, heard, and protected. 2 years later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon in June, the Bakersfield Hells Angels Charter held their annual charity ride for foster children. The parking lot of their clubhouse was packed with families, bikes, and the smell of barbecue. Music played from speakers, kids ran around with face paint and balloons, and the atmosphere was one of pure celebration. 10-year-old Tommy Parker stood on a small stage wearing a Hells Angels support t-shirt that was still a bit too big for him. His hair was longer now, and his eyes, while still carrying shadows of what he had endured, also held light. Dr. Chun and Robert sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Next to them was Marcus, wearing his full colors, his arm around his wife Jessica, whom he had married the previous fall. Tommy cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. His voice was steady, stronger than it had been 2 years ago. "My name is Tommy Parker, and I want to thank everyone here today. 2 years ago, I could not talk. I was scared all the time. I thought nobody cared about kids like me. But then I met Marcus, and he showed me that sometimes angels wear leather instead of wings." The crowd laughed and applauded. Marcus wiped his eyes and gave Tommy a thumbs up. Tommy continued, "Because of him and all of you, I am safe now. I have a real family with Dr. Sarah and Robert. I go to school and I have friends. I even joined the chess club, which is pretty cool. But most importantly, I learned that being silent does not keep you safe. Speaking up does. Asking for help does. And there are people who will listen if you are brave enough to try." The applause was thunderous. Tank stepped up and put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. This kid right here is the reason we do what we do. We ride for the ones who cannot ride for themselves. We speak for the ones who have lost their voice. And we never, ever turn our backs on a child in need. The charity ride raised over $40,000 that day, all going to organizations that support foster children and abuse survivors. The story of Tommy and the 250 bikers had gone national, inspiring similar movements across the country. Other motorcycle clubs started their own child advocacy programs. Laws were changed to increase oversight of foster homes. Tommy's case became a catalyst for real reform. As the sun set over Bakersfield, Tommy sat on the back of Marcus's parked bike, eating a hot dog and watching the families around him. He thought about the scared, silent boy he used to be and felt grateful for the journey, painful as it had been, that brought him here. Marcus walked over and ruffled his hair. "You did good today, kid. Your mom would be proud." Tommy smiled, a real genuine smile. "Thanks, Marcus, for everything, for saving me,